The Pacific quieted before dawn. Long after the last battle had been won and the last zero fallen silent, the ocean still carried whispers, propellers that no longer spun, wings that no longer cut the wind. Years had passed since Lieutenant Mark Caldwell's Hellcat vanished beyond the horizon, but among the men who survived him, the sound of a throttle easing down still stirred something sacred. They called it Caldwell's ghost. And though no one could prove where he'd gone, every pilot who'd ever stalled at 200 feet swore they heard his voice through the static, slow, steady, calm. Easy, son. Listen to her. Let her breathe. The war ended, but stories do not die the same way soldiers do. They shift form, blend into hangar talk, into flight school folklore, into the manuals written by men who'd once learned from a ghost. In 1948, at a flight instructors' reunion on a rainy field outside San Diego, Commander Haynes stepped off a C-54 transport and lit a cigarette. The rain hissed against his lighter. His hair had gone gray, his eyes rimmed with fatigue that no sleep could fix. Around him, the air buzzed with the optimism of peace. Jet engines, experimental prototypes, laughter of young engineers who'd never seen flak holes in aluminum. A familiar voice called across the tarmac. Still burning yourself up one puff at a time? Haynes turned. Captain Reynolds, one of the last of the Sky Wolves, smiled beneath a soaked cap. They shook hands like survivors of a shipwreck meeting on dry land. Didn't think you'd make it, Reynolds said. These reunions aren't your style. Neither is getting old, Haynes muttered. You still teaching? Yeah. The kids fly jets now. No props, no noise, just whoosh. They think they're gods. You should see the way they sneer when I talk about throttle stalls. Like it's an old man's superstition. Haynes took a slow drag and exhaled. Maybe it is. Reynolds looked at him sharply. You don't mean that. Haynes shook his head. No. I just mean it takes belief to make something work. Caldwell had it. He didn't slow the plane, he slowed time. Reynolds's expression softened. He saved my life, you know. Guam, 44. I throttled down and the bastard overshot. Every time I land now, I hear him in my head saying, "Easy, Reynolds, slow is life." They stood in silence, listening to the rain beat against aluminum. Neither said the thing they both thought, that maybe Caldwell had never crashed, maybe the sky simply kept what it needed. Across the Pacific, in a small town near Monterey, Evelyn Hart had built her own quiet world. After the war, she bought a white cottage overlooking cliffs where waves smashed endlessly below. She still kept the photo of footprints in her bedroom, the edges faded and soft. Each morning she walked the same path she and Mark had once taken in Hawaii, letting the wind braid her hair into salt-tangled strands. On her kitchen table sat a small model of a Hellcat, blue paint chipped, one wing slightly bent. She'd found it years ago in a box sent by Haynes, along with a note. Recovered from debris field, 1944. Thought you should have it. For what it's worth, he taught us all how to live slower. She never married. She didn't need to. Some loves are wide enough to fill a lifetime without aging a day. Every few years, when military historians came asking questions, she answered politely, poured them tea, and told them the same story. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to understand the air. You can't fight what holds you up. Most left puzzled. A few, the ones who truly listened, left changed. By the early 1950s, jet fighters ruled the sky. They were faster, deadlier, machines of pure velocity. But in every academy manual, tucked between equations and engine diagrams, was a single paragraph that never got deleted. Throttle discipline remains crucial. In certain conditions, deceleration may induce tactical overshoot. Patience is survival. No one ever said, Caldwell's maneuver. It became doctrine by osmosis, a legend stripped of its name but not its soul. One young cadet at Pensacola read those lines with a kind of reverence. His name was Jack Monroe, 19 years old, too bold for his own good. He loved speed, the kind that blurred clouds into streaks. But something about that single paragraph stuck in his mind. During his first mock dogfight, he found himself tailed too close by another trainee. Panic clawed at his chest, but the words rose like a prayer. Throttle discipline. Slow is life. He eased the throttle, felt the jet shudder. His pursuer shot forward helplessly, and for the first time, Jack saw the beauty in stillness. When they landed, his instructor barked, "Where'd you learn that trick?" Jack smiled faintly. "From someone who knew the sky better than I do." Years turned. Monroe became one of the Navy's finest. And when the Korean War came, he passed that same lesson to his squadron. "Sometimes," he told them, "the best move isn't acceleration, it's surrender. The enemy expects aggression. He doesn't expect humility." They laughed at first. Then one day over the Yellow Sea, a MiG pilot locked onto Monroe's tail at Mach 0.9. Jack cut throttle to near stall, feeling his jet quiver as the MiG overshot in a blur of silver. He fired one clean burst. The kill was confirmed. But more than that, history had repeated itself, Caldwell's ghost flying again through a new machine. Meanwhile, Evelyn's cottage aged beautifully. In her garden grew blue hydrangeas and rosemary. Each year, veterans visited her doorstep, some too old to salute, some young enough to be her sons. They came not for sympathy but for understanding. They'd heard the name, Caldwell, whispered in ready rooms, seen it in old logbooks, painted under cockpit glass like a charm. She'd invite them in, pour tea, and ask the same question every time. "What did you feel when you throttled down?" And they'd always answer the same way, eyes distant, voices soft. "Peace." Evelyn would nod, as if that confirmed something she already knew. "That's what he wanted," she'd say. "To teach peace to men trained for war." Decades passed. The world moved on to satellites and stealth. Flight became science more than soul. But in certain circles, especially among test pilots and historians, Caldwell's legend refused to die. In 1983, a documentary crew sought to tell the forgotten stories of the Pacific. They tracked down Haynes, by then a retired admiral, frail but sharp-eyed. He sat in a sunlit study filled with maps and medals. The interviewer asked, "Sir, who invented the throttle stall tactic?" Haynes chuckled. "Invented? No one invents fear. Caldwell just made friends with it." "Do you believe he survived?" The old man looked toward the window where the horizon shimmered. "In a way, every time a pilot cuts speed instead of panicking, he survives again." The film aired once on PBS, late at night. It never became famous. But years later, a young director found it, mesmerized by the raw humanity of that line. He pitched a film, Throttle to Stall, The Man Who Listened to the Sky. The movie came out in 2007. It opened with a breathtaking sequence, a fighter stalling over endless ocean, the pilots breathing audible over radio static, whispering, "Slow is life." Critics called it haunting, poetic, unlike any war film before. Audiences wept, not for the battles, but for the silence between them. At the end, before the credits, a quote appeared on screen. "If I don't come back, tell them the sky forgives only those who listen." Lieutenant Mark Caldwell, 1944. The film won awards it didn't expect. Evelyn, now in her 90s, watched it alone in her living room, the ocean murmuring outside. When the final shot showed a Hellcat gliding into the sunrise, she reached out, fingertips trembling, and whispered, "You made it, Mark. You finally landed." She died 2 months later, peacefully, with the photograph still by her bed. At her funeral, veterans gathered like a living museum of memory. Haynes's son spoke, reading her favorite passage from one of Caldwell's letters. Reporters attended too, filming for a documentary sequel. After the service, the Navy arranged a flyover, 4F divided by a -18s roaring across the coastline. As they reached the cliffs, one broke formation and throttled down sharply, letting the others rush past. It was planned, choreographed. But for a moment, as the jet trembled in the wind, every head turned upward, hearts in throats, and the oldest men swore they heard something beneath the thunder, a calm voice through the static. "Easy, son. Listen to her. Let her breathe." Then the jet rose again, into sunlight. 50 years after his disappearance, a team of oceanographers discovered the wreck of an F-6F Hellcat off the Marianas. They found a single piece of the fuselage preserved under coral, and inside, a waterproof pouch containing fragments of a logbook. One page survived almost intact. The air holds its secrets like water holds wrecks. Maybe the trick isn't winning. Maybe it's surrendering beautifully. The divers surfaced in silence. One of them, a pilot's grandson, wept without knowing why. The news spread across aviation circles, through documentaries, podcasts, flight schools. The story of Caldwell became not just legend but philosophy, a reminder that slowing down isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Today, every U.S. Navy pilot still trains in energy management dogfighting. The first slide of the lecture shows a black and white photo of a Hellcat in a gentle climb. The instructor says, "This is where our doctrine begins. When the enemy is too close and your instincts scream for speed, remember the man who taught us that survival sometimes means trust." No one says his name out loud anymore. They don't need to, because the sound of a throttle easing back, the whisper of air over wings at stall speed, the moment when the world slows and everything becomes possible, that's Caldwell. And as long as men and women fly, he will never truly be gone. The sky remembers.